So we're going to go over to our social media board now with Luigi and see if we have any questions.
We do have a question. It's kind of a great question. How do I plan a persuasive essay?
Oh, well, that's perfect for what we just were talking about with the district attorney. So actually, if you think about planning any essay, this good start, you want to plan it. Dealing with persuasion and writing arguments requires a lot, and I'm just going to go into the planning of it. So if we can pull up my computer screen, I've got kind of a little graphic organizer that you can follow. This actually comes from a class I took in college, and I've used this kind of strategy forever, and I always suggest it to my students. So use this kind of as your graphic organizer. You start with a topic, something simple, like if you're doing persuasion, you're going to be trying to persuade or influence somebody to do something or think something. So if you think about the topic, let's think about the idea of bicycle helmets, okay? So that's the topic there, bike helmets. And when you think about a research question, you might be unfamiliar with what that is, but basically it's just the essential question that you're asking yourself as you research. And when you're planning a persuasive essay, you want to do all of your research first. And the reason I say this is most persuasive essays want you to have your three main arguments, but they also want you to address your opponent's arguments. I'm not sure why that says two. Your three opponents' arguments, because you need to make counterclaims, you need to make concessions when you're talking about the other side of the story. And just, to be a good citizen in this country, you need to always be thinking about the other side of the story. Oftentimes we get too marred down in one side. So the research question would be something simple like, should bike helmets be required by law? So again, you're using this as your template to guide your writing. So we've got the topic, we've got the research question. Now the thesis is simply a response to the above research question. And it can't be yes or no, okay? You don't ever want to respond to anything in writing with a simple yes or no, because you're making assumptions about what your reader already knows. Do they already know the research question? In this case, they wouldn't. The thesis is really the only thing so far that would be going into your paper. So, should they be required by law? You can say, complete sentence, helmets should or should not be required by law, okay? Again, this will be very basic, but it can serve as your thesis. They should or they should not. Now, when you're thinking about your arguments and your opponent's arguments, this is when your research will come into play. Think about the statistics behind accidents involving bicyclists wearing helmets and those who are not. There's even more of a social side of it. Some research might find that people that wear helmets are less likely to get into wrecks because they are being more careful. It might show the opposite, whatever it may be. But this is where your three arguments are going to go. So, you might deal with, statistics and health, injuries, something like that. And again, I'm just kind of doing the bare basics here, but when you do this, the more work you do early on in an essay, the less work you're going to do later. So again, you come up with your three arguments, anything that helps to prove your point, and then you need to address your opponent's arguments, okay, whatever they may be. Maybe they deal with helmets being bulky and uncomfortable, or giving people a false sense of safety, whatever that may be for your opponent's arguments. But if you're going to have three arguments, which you should, you are also going to have three opponents' arguments. And again, when you concede in persuasion, when you give the other side of the story, you're proving to your reader and to your audience that you're not holding anything out. You're not withholding anything. You're not trying to skew their thoughts because you're not giving them the whole side of the story. So this is a really great way to plan a persuasive essay. And if you have any more questions about this, I'll be happy to go over more of this with you. Writing persuasive and argumentative essays is really essential in today's world. You use them in your history classes and in your English classes, and then again in your college classes. Again, just helpful hint: if you are citing statistics, researching all of those things, you want to make sure you keep a good record of your sources and you cite them properly at the end. So I hope that helps you out.
Awesome. That's something that I always struggled with, just me being a numbers person. But with the planning tool, really helps make it a little bit more concrete. I like it a lot.
Exactly, and you can end up using this as an outline, which a lot of teachers require you to do an outline. So hopefully, you kind of get into the flow of planning out anything that you're going to write.